The next morning, Ethan woke feeling different. Again. Not just from yesterday, not just from the bite. The moment he opened his eyes, the world seemed sharper, clearer. He could hear the faint hum of the station's machinery, the distant chatter of aliens in corridors far away, and even the subtle vibration of energy fields beneath the floors. He rubbed his eyes. Okay, definitely not normal, he muttered to himself. He glanced at the faint mark on his arm, the crescent-shaped bite from Lyra, and realized it had faded almost completely, but the effects had not. His mind felt alert, his reflexes sharper, and an unusual calm settled over him. Before he could process it further, a soft knock came at the door. Lyra stepped in, her violet eyes observing him carefully. You feel the bond more strongly now, she said. It strengthens over time. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated and bewildered. Lyra, I didn't sign up for this. I'm just a human. I joke I fix machines and I try to survive long enough to eat something decent. I don't belong to anyone. Lyra tilted her head. It is not about ownership in the way you imagine. In my culture, a bond is trust, responsibility, and connection. You are bound to me, yes, but it is mutual. You belong to the bond as much as I do. Ethan stared at her. Mutual? What? You will understand as you experience it, Lyra said, walking closer. It is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to protect, guide, and strengthen. Humans have courage, creativity, and adaptability, traits my people admire. The bond allows me to share perception with you and you with me. Ethan sat heavily on the edge of his bunk. Great, so now I have alien super senses and I don't even get to choose it. Fantastic. Lyra did not flinch. She simply smiled, faint but genuine. It is not punishment. It is opportunity. He rubbed his eyes again, trying to process everything. The bite that had started as a joke was no longer a joke. His life had changed in a way he could not ignore. Over the next few days, Ethan began noticing subtle but undeniable changes. His reflexes were faster. He could detect subtle movements around him, almost like he had a sixth sense. Colors seemed richer and sounds more layered. He could sense Lyra's presence even when she was on the other side of the station. At first, he tried to ignore it, attributing it to imagination. But small incidents kept proving him wrong. One morning, he was carrying a crate of delicate equipment through a crowded corridor when a maintenance drone malfunctioned, spinning wildly toward him. Before he could even react consciously, he sidestepped perfectly, the crate untouched and the drone slammed into the wall behind him. People stared. Ethan himself was stunned. Whoa, he muttered. Did I just dodge that? Mara, passing by, stopped and stared at him. Ethan, you just moved like some kind of, I don't know, action hero. What the hell is going on? Ethan laughed nervously. Must be luck. Yeah, pure human luck. But deep down he knew it was more than luck. It was the bond. The bite had changed him. It had connected him to Lyra in ways he didn't fully understand. Later that day, Lyra found him in the observation deck, staring at the endless stars beyond the station. You are learning, she said, her voice calm. You are feeling the bond. I'm feeling everything, Ethan admitted. I hear too much, I see too much, and I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. This is not normal, Lyra, this is crazy. It is normal for someone bound to me, she said simply. The bond allows humans to exceed their normal limits. It does not make you less human. It shows your potential. Ethan frowned. Potential, right. And what happens if I don't want this bond? What if I just want my normal human life back? Lyra's eyes softened. You may struggle, resist, even fear it, but it cannot be undone lightly. Bonds are sacred in my culture. Once made, they grow stronger with experience. You have choices, but you must respect the bond as it grows. The idea weighed on him. Ethan had always been independent. He valued freedom, jokes, and simple human pleasures. And now, in an instant, his life had been reshaped by a gesture that had seemed so trivial, a bite. But the station did not wait for him to adjust. Life went on, and soon he faced evidence of how the bond affected his place among humans and aliens alike. At the station's central market, a group of Alari merchants approached him. Their leader, a tall alien named Korath, studied Ethan carefully. You are bound to Lyra, Korath said, his tone measured. It is known. This gives you status among our people, but it also places responsibility on you, protecting her, obeying the code of the bond, or face consequences. Ethan's stomach sank. Consequences? For a Bite? Korath's eyes narrowed. It is not merely a bite. It is a cultural pact, a test of trust. Your species is unusual, human, but you now carry responsibility far beyond your understanding. Ethan swallowed hard. His mind raced. Humans were adaptable, yes, but this was not just survival. This was navigating alien politics, laws, and traditions, all while feeling the strange pull of a bond he barely understood. Back in his quarters, Ethan sat with Mara, explaining everything. It started as a joke, Mara, I swear. I never thought that bite would do this. I feel different, I see things, I react faster. And everyone, aliens, humans, now looks at me differently. Mara shook her head. Ethan, only you could turn a festival joke into whatever this is. But look, maybe it's not all bad. You get skills, respect, maybe even some protection. Ethan laughed bitterly. Yeah, protection. Or responsibility, or worse. I don't even know. I can't ignore this anymore. I belong to her now, Mara. That's what Lyra said, and I don't know if I like it, but it's true. The days passed, and Ethan grew more aware of the subtle ways the bond influenced him. He could sense when Lyra was in trouble, even when she was out of sight. He instinctively knew when to act, when to avoid danger. Humans were capable of incredible ingenuity and courage, he realized. But this bond made him more than human in some ways. It was both thrilling and terrifying. Then came the first real test. While inspecting a newly installed power conduit in the station, Ethan detected unusual readings, heat fluctuations and energy surges that no human sensor should have detected. His instincts screamed danger. Something's wrong, he muttered. He reached for his toolkit, but before he could move, the panel exploded in a shower of sparks. Ethan ducked, rolling instinctively and catching a falling cable before it struck him. He froze, heart pounding. The bond had saved him. Not luck, not training. Something deeper, something shared with Lyra, had guided his reflexes. Later, Lyra found him, calm as ever. You survived. You are beginning to understand. The bond is not just protection. It is guidance. It connects us. It allows you to rise beyond what you thought possible. Ethan sat on the floor, still shaken. I didn't ask for this. I didn't, but it is yours now, Lyra interrupted gently. And you will learn to use it. Humans have courage, creativity, and resilience. These traits, when shared through the bond, make you strong. You are learning. That is all that matters now. Ethan stared at the floor, the weight of her words sinking in. A joke had turned into a pact. A playful bite had turned into a connection that challenged everything he thought about himself. And yet, deep inside, a part of him felt proud, alert, alive. Humans were adaptable, resilient, and capable of greatness. And for the first time, Ethan realized he could rise to this new challenge. He looked up at Lyra, eyes meeting hers. Okay, I don't fully understand this bond thing yet, but I'm not running away either. Lyra's smile widened slightly. Good. That is all that is needed for now. Trust the bond, trust yourself, and let the connection grow. The universe is larger than you imagined, Ethan. And you, humans, have potential beyond comprehension. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the faint pulse of the bond in his chest. It was strange, unnerving, and yet comforting. He belonged now, not as a prisoner, not as a joke, but as part of something larger than himself, something that demanded courage, loyalty, and adaptability. And as the station hummed quietly around him, Ethan realized one thing. His life had changed forever. A playful bite, a joke gone wrong, or perhaps gone right, had opened a door to possibilities he had never imagined. The universe was vast, the aliens were complex, and the bond was only beginning. And Ethan, he was ready to face it. The desert world of Arcanus the Five burned under twin suns, the ground cracked and dry, shimmering in waves of heat. The planet was a harsh, unyielding place with jagged cliffs and endless dunes stretching toward the horizon. Humans and Xerithians had clashed here for months, each side claiming territory in a bitter struggle over mining rights and strategic positions. Yet neither side had expected the chaos that morning. Captain Elias Ward crouched behind the scorched remains of a transport hovercraft, his armor scuffed and dented. Sweat poured down his face, though the air was almost too dry to feel it. Around him, the other human soldiers moved cautiously, their plasma rifles scanning the horizon. The Xerithian attackers were clever, their alien forms slipping in and out of the heat haze, making it impossible to predict their movements. Elias's sharp gaze caught a small, frantic figure darting between the dunes, a child. No older than 10 by human standards, with shimmering silver skin and glowing violet eyes. It was Lyra, the daughter of a minor Xerithian noble. She carried a small device strapped to her chest, probably a data chip with sensitive information. Her presence here made no sense. Humans weren't supposed to be in her sector. Xerithians didn't usually bring children into battle zones, and yet there she was, running straight toward a firing line. "Lyra," Elias shouted, even as a hail of plasma bolts cut through the air. The child didn't hear him, too focused on survival. His stomach tightened. He had a choice: stay safe behind cover as protocol demanded, or risk his life to save an enemy child. Elias didn't hesitate. He sprinted across the open sand, boots kicking up clouds of fine dust. A human soldier beside him shouted, "Captain, don't!" But Elias ignored the warning. The instinct to protect life, any life, was too strong. A plasma bolt streaked past, sizzling the air as it struck the ground where Lyra had just been. Elias dove, sliding across the sand and wrapping his body around her, pulling her into a protective embrace. Another bolt hit, striking his shoulder. Pain exploded through him, fire crawling down his arm. His armor hissed and smoked, but it held barely. "Stay down! Stay down!" He barked, shielding her with his body. Lyra's small form trembled in his grasp, her wide eyes reflecting the twin suns. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm a friend," Elias gasped, blood running down his arm where the plasma had seared through. "I'm here to keep you safe." The Xerithians pressed forward, their long, sleek forms skimming over the dunes. Their weapons glowed with a cold blue light, firing with deadly precision. Elias gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of every shot that could have ended Lyra's life if he hadn't acted. "Move," he yelled, pushing Lyra toward the shallow ruins of a collapsed outpost. They ducked behind a wall of jagged metal, Elias's body shielding her as he tried to catch his breath. The heat, the sand, and the pain made his head spin. Every muscle screamed, but he couldn't stop now. Not until she was safe. Lyra pressed against him, small hands clutching his armor. Why are you helping me?" she asked. Elias forced a weak smile. "Because it's the right thing to do." The Xerithian attackers paused, confused. They hadn't expected a human to risk himself for one of their own. In their culture, compassion toward enemies was considered weakness. But Elias's eyes burned with something stronger than fear, something they didn't understand. Honor, courage, humanity. A sudden screech of plasma fire tore through the air. One of Elias's fellow soldiers fired back, giving them cover. Another bolt struck the ground near them, throwing shards of metal and sand into the air. Elias winced as debris cut his face, but he didn't release his grip on Lyra. The child's breathing was ragged, but she seemed unharmed. Elias, however, was struggling to stay upright. His armor had absorbed most of the plasma strike, but the impact had bruised him, and his side burned with deep, gnawing pain. Sweat and blood mixed on his face, dripping into his eyes. He blinked rapidly, refusing to let panic take hold. "Elias, we have to retreat," one of his squadmates called, appearing at the edge of the ruins. "We can't hold them off forever." Elias shook his head. "Not without her. We leave together or not at all." Another wave of Xerithians charged, their movements swift and coordinated. Elias fired his plasma rifle while holding Lyra with his other arm, keeping her low to the ground. The small bullets of alien plasma whipped past him, but his aim was true. One attacker fell, then another, sparks flying as human rounds met alien energy shields. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the enemy retreated, realizing the humans had a small, hidden advantage. The outpost ruins, once silent and abandoned, were now a battlefield strewn with scorched metal and scorched earth. Smoke rose from several craters, and the twin suns reflected off the jagged landscape like fiery mirrors. Elias sank to his knees, Lyra still in his arms. His vision blurred as exhaustion overtook him. Every step had drained him, every shot fired had sapped his strength, and the plasma strike had left his body battered. "You saved me," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling but full of awe. Elias tried to smile. "I did. That's what humans do." His voice was hoarse, but there was pride in it. "We protect life, even if it's not our own." The child looked at him, her eyes wide. "Even if they are our enemies?" "Especially then," Elias said, and he meant it. His squad mates arrived, helping him to his feet and checking for injuries. "Captain," "You're burned bad," one muttered, glancing at his scorched armor. "You shouldn't have—" "I couldn't leave her," Elias interrupted, voice firm despite the pain. "No human worth their salt would." As the human team prepared to evacuate, a strange sight caught Elias's attention. From the horizon, a massive figure approached. The unmistakable silhouette of Zyrithian elite forces, their banners reflecting the suns, moving with eerie precision. They were not here to fight. They were here to retrieve something. Or someone. Elias instinctively stepped in front of Lyra. The small, silver-skinned child clung to him. His heart pounded. The humans were outnumbered, and the Zyrithians were coming for her. But Elias didn't flinch. He had made a choice. The lead Zyrithian, taller and more imposing than any soldier he had seen, raised a hand. Its eyes glowed a deep violet, scanning Elias and Lyra. Then it spoke, not in words he could understand, but in tone and intent. Respect, curiosity, and a warning all at once. Elias held his ground, glaring back. He would not let harm come to the child, no matter the cost. The Zyrithians halted, studying him, then, without another shot, retreated, leaving Elias and Lyra alone under the blazing suns. But the message was clear. This act of bravery had been noticed, and it would not be forgotten. As his squad lifted him onto a hover stretcher, Elias looked down at Lyra. She was silent, gripping his hand. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself a small, tired smile. "We're going to get through this," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "You're safe, and I'll make sure of it." But deep in the shadows of the desert dunes, unseen eyes watched. The Zyrithian queen had heard of the human who shielded her child with his own body. In her crystal palace far across the sands, she would soon make a decision that would change the fate of two worlds, and the life of Captain Elias Ward. And so, the seeds of a story larger than war itself were planted, a story of courage, honor, and the unexpected power of humanity in a universe that often misunderstood it.